All right, good afternoon. Today what we're going to be looking at is how to construct a survey. For this one, it's in particular to be used in conjunction with the assessment task, but it's a good skill to know how to do and use if you're doing any senior geography, if you're doing the senior geography project or any other social science where you need to get public opinion. You'll need to be able to construct a good survey, and so that's what we're going to be looking at today. Look, if you're looking at this from my geography class, and this is the assessment notification, and so look, we'll just have a quick look at it, and you can see down here, this is what you've got to do, and you can see there's the point there. You've got to design a survey/questionnaire to provide reliable and accurate understanding of your geographic issue. You need minimum and a maximum of 10 questions, so it is 10 questions. You need to survey 20 people, and then from that you're going to have to construct 2 graphs and write a report. So it's really crucial. If you don't have a good survey, it's going to be very hard to construct 2 graphs and write a report that really gives you any sort of valid information. So we'll look at that now. Here's a survey I've typed up, but it's not uncommon to see a survey like this, and really this is a survey that's highly problematic. There's a lot of issues with this survey, but very commonly students will type a survey up like this and think, this is a survey that I'm going to use. It's the use of the park, and I'm going to use that as just my sample topic for the rest of this overview. Let's have a think about what some of the things that are wrong with this survey. I'll get you to pause now, have a look through it and think for yourself what you think's wrong with it. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you've had a look. Let's pick out some of the things. Firstly, just the formatting for starters is very poor. If you're giving this to a person to fill out, it's just structurally a poor survey to look at. Several things. The numbering is out. So it goes from 1 to B to 3 to E, down to 9. There's clearly a problem there. The nature of the questions are very ambiguous. How old are you? Well, that's not hard, but you're going to find that if you give that out to 20 people, you'll get 20 different responses, which isn't particularly helpful. Are you male? This is a question that is, I guess, somewhat loaded. If you give this to a female, how are they going to feel answering it? Saying, where do you live? You're likely to get 20 different responses. This next one doesn't have a number. Do you have a dog? It's just, the questioning just seems to be illogical. And so hopefully you can sort of see there's plenty of things that's wrong with this survey. So we'll go through some of the tips to avoid. Your survey structure for the assessment task, it should be 10 questions. Your first 2 questions should be on age and gender. It is important to look at age and gender, especially when you come to the next section. When we look at collating data, it's important that you can look at age and gender and look for any trends that might exist with age and gender. Question 3 to 8 should focus on the issue and should be closed questions. They should be multiple choice. The more multiple choice they are in nature, the easier it is to graph them and to look for trends later on. If you leave them open and you have too many open-ended questions, with a small sample of 20 people, it's likely that you're going to get 20 different responses, which make it very really unhelpful when you're making a graph. The last 2, though, can be open-ended and allows for a deeper understanding. I think the important thing here is confidentiality. We don't need to know anything that's private or anything sensitive about the individual. We don't need to know their name, and so you need to respect the respondent at all times. Let's have a look at some sample questions. From the first one, a question like just age or what are you could much more easily be answered by this sort of a process. Age and then brackets or options. You can choose a range of different cohorts here depending on what your issue is. I've just chosen 6 here, but there's no reason you couldn't go up in 10-year cohorts, or if you're looking at an issue that maybe affects young people, you might choose 2-year cohorts. Gender should always be just male or female, and not have any real bias to it at all. The main thing to bring out of it is for age. You choose an age gap or an age cohort that is uniform, so it always goes up in the same amount and fits the issue that you're looking at. Then the next sort of set of questions for the middle of your survey should be multiple choice. They should have at least 3 possible answers, and the main reason for this is for graphing your results. If you imagine, if you have 2 options and you draw a pie graph, that there is about as good as it's going to get. What you really want to be able to do is to, if you have 3 or 4 different options, it allows for a much more intricate pie graph and something that just provides you with more detail. The other thing you've got to make sure when you're doing multiple choice questions is that the person, so at this point here, you've got to make sure that the respondent can actually only choose one response. Too often I've seen students write a survey where a respondent is confused as to which they've got to choose. So, for example, how many children do you have? They can be sort of left going, well, do I choose, if I've only got 2, do I choose this one or this one? So you've got to make sure that you look at your survey and you think, make sure that there's only one possible option. You've got to ensure that each question is independent and doesn't have more than one question. For example, how many children do you have and how many go to the park? You've got to make sure, well, what does the respondent, do they have the 2 children and do both go to the park, or maybe they've got 3 children? So this is a very confusing question. You need to make sure that the question really just has one part to it, and that really what you would do is you would say, how many children do you have, and break it there, and then you might say, how many go to the park would be a separate question. The other thing with multiple choice questions, and I see it a lot, is really make sure you don't use ambiguous units of measurement. So often you see questions like, how far do you live from the park? Nearby, not too far, and far, far away are things that I guess seem silly to be talking about, but very commonly come up, or nearby or close by, and really, what's your unit of measurement for close by? Depending on where people drive to or where people work, some people might say one place is close by, whereas the same person or someone next door might say that's far away. So I would always suggest that you use kilometres as your distances. Times can be ambiguous as well because of depending if people walk or drive. So just be careful for that as well. So if you're using any unit of measurement, try to make sure that it's not ambiguous at all, that it is very straightforward and can't be misinterpreted. You've got to make sure that your ordering of your questions has a logical flow, that it's not jumping around. For example here, how often do you visit the park? And then, where do you go to work? What do you primarily use the park for? This question here doesn't seem to, at first appearance, have any logical reason for being there. It might be an important question for you, but you'd have to ask yourself, is it a question that should have existed here, or should it perhaps go here? So just make sure when you're looking at your survey that near the end, when you're in that formatting process, that you look and you think, there's a logical flow, there's a reason why that question turns up where it does. At the end, the last 2 questions I'd suggest you have as open-ended questions. And when I say an open-ended question, a question where a respondent can write something down. Now, why would you do this? You do this to support your statistical data, your questions, your multiple choice questions. And you can use that to quote in your report. For example here, this is just made up, but question 3 asks respondent what their primary use of the park was. 60% of the respondents stated swimming. This may be due to the outstanding swimming facility, as was pointed out by one respondent who said, and this would be a quote that has come straight from the survey, this is the only pool in the area that's heated, so it can be used all year. So what I've done is I've used a quotation from an open-ended question to support the statistical data from one of the earlier questions, in particular question 3. So, near the end of it, we started with a survey like this here, which was a very poor survey, and really what you should be aiming for is something like this, something 1 A4 page, formatted very straightforwardly, providing really, I've got here 9 questions of multiple choice nature, and I've only got one open-ended question. Look, you can have 2, but I would have no more than 2. Mine is a completely fictitious survey, so it won't work for anyone. It won't work for a particular student here, but I'm more than happy if you want to use it as a bit of a guide. But hopefully this will give you, if you have a look at this survey, it'll give you a bit of an outline about how you might structure your survey and what you want out of it. I guess as an overview, what do you need to do? You need to make sure that your survey is clear and easily understandable. You need to make sure that it looks simple so that when you approach someone that they're willing to participate, and that really, there's only one possible answer. You don't want respondents to be confused when they're doing your survey. Hopefully this has been helpful for you. I'll put up another video in a little while about how to collate data and what you do when you've finished doing your 20 surveys. All right, hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you soon. Bye.